you can tell from the title of the video, I think we're going to sign a striker in January. Possibly more than just a striker, but we'll deal with the striker for now. There's several different factors that play into this. And I think the first one very much is that we're going to lose Said Benrahma in the African Cup of Nations at the start of the year. Now, I think up to now, David Moyes has probably been more or less happy to gamble with his squad, gamble with the fact that he's going to be able to cover it until we get to such time, and he's got a bit of form for doing that. If you go back to last season, Antonio got an injury, and there was an opportunity during the winter window for him to bring in a striker. He didn't do it. He chose to bring in Jesse Lingard, and I think he was, I was not criticised particularly at the start, but quite heavily questioned, let's say, as to why he would do that and the wisdom of it. He said, don't worry about it, I've got a system, we'll do something else, I've got a number of players who can play in that position. And he basically went on to say that Lingard was a flexible player, he was an attacker, and he could do a job if need be as a false nine. Actually turned out that, well, I thought he was right. I didn't think we missed out on top four, which is where we were for such a large part of the season. I don't feel that we missed out on top four because David Moyes got it wrong in an attacking aspect. I thought we missed out on top four because of Declan Rice and because there really wasn't sufficient cover in central midfield. If you remember, Lanzini came in, Lanzini played well. Then I think Lanzini played half the game, possibly against Burnley, and then we really did struggle. So I felt that was a big part of it. So the gamble, number one, the gamble worked. Number two, he's shown he's happy to gamble to get through the next stage. And I think that's what's happening now. There's no way that with the extra fixture congestion that David Moyes doesn't know that come January, and Said Benrahma and Masuaku and Diop, by the way, all go off to the African Cup of Nations, that he doesn't know that the squad is going to be thin. You have to assume at this point, with 2 wins out of 2 and 6 points on the board in our European group, that we're going to get through to the knockout stage. Now, we may be afforded a little bit of a luxury if we win the group and we don't qualify for the last 32, we go straight to the last 16, that maybe we miss out a bit of fixture congestion at the end of February, at the end of January, start of February. But I don't think he's going to gamble to that extent. I don't think he's going to gamble with the fact that Algeria get knocked out early, and they won't do. I think they're number 3 seeds for the African Cup of Nations, by the way. So, and Said Benrahma, even though he was a substitute in the last game, is a big part of that. He's a big part of the team, and he's one of their most flamboyant and skillful players, absolutely. However, I think with the players going, Moyes is going to look at it. Then I think you've got to factor in Rob Newman. I'm going to get to the couple of players that we've been linked with. I felt for quite some time that Rob Newman needed to be afforded some flexibility in terms of his money. There's no point in bringing in a director of recruitment if you're not going to give him anybody to recruit, basically. So I do believe that as part of his remit and as part of identifying players, you've got to do 2 things. Number one, you've got to give the bloke a budget because it is recruitment. Number 2, you've got to tell him the areas in which you want to strengthen. There's no point saying to Rob, welcome to West Ham. Do you know what, mate? Just go and scout some players, any position, keepers, strikers, midfielders, wingers, doesn't matter, and at any price. Well, that's no instruction at all, is it? He's going to need to refine his job, to a more condensed point than that. That's for sure. So I think he's going to have a budget. I think there'll be some budget for a striker, and I think he's going to be looking at some of the players that maybe we've not heard of before, which is what makes me think that some of the links that I've seen in recent days, there may be some validity to them because they're not players we've heard of. I mentioned it the other day when Aaron Ramsey. There's no point going to get Aaron Ramsey. No point bringing in a director of recruitment and then going and bringing in a player that everybody's heard of, that everybody knows is available. No, there's no value to that at all. And I do believe that there is some money there, but I do believe it's going to be a limited amount of money. Because what I think we might well find ourselves doing to cover January is something we've done before. We have form for this. We borrow against next season's money. and we borrowed. I think we actually did it with the Bowen transfer. I believe I think we used next season's money to do it. I think we also possibly did that with the Benrahma one. I might be wrong. Might have used the money we were getting for Dean Garner for that, but I might be wrong. But we certainly do have form for using next season's money to bring a player in. And the gamble is that we can get to January, that we can get to January and the group stages of Europe in relatively decent form. And when I would say relatively decent form, the form would be in the top half of the Premier League, which I do think is good, given the extra games in Europe. I do think that's a good thing, just to be in the top half of the Premier League. In the cup competitions, or well, actually, I guess if you get to, I think the semi-finals are in January, so I mean, if you're still in the League Cup in January, you're well in with a shout. But I certainly think, top half in the league, in the knockout stages in Europe, would be a really, really good point. I think Moyes is gambling that he can get to those points with the squad as it is. But I don't even think Casino Moisey, old Las Vegas Moisey, is a gambler enough to think that actually he can go beyond that if you then take Masuaku, you then take Diop, and you then take Benrahma out of it. Now, I know I mention them all in the same breath, but because Benrahma's pretty much a first-team player now, Diop and Masuaku aren't. But it gives a hell of a lot of comfort knowing that they're on the bench, knowing that if anything goes wrong, you've got players of Premier League calibre. Whether you think they're world beaters or just standard Premier League players, doesn't matter. They're Premier League proven performers who on their day, can play very, very well. There's a comfort to having them on the bench, and it starts to look a lot more frail if you've got someone like Baptiste and Ongello on there for Premier League games to take their places. So I think Newman's going to come in. I think Newman is going to have money to spend, which is why we look at these two players, which if I find my glasses now, I'll be honest with you, I hadn't heard of either of them. I probably should say now, at least 7 minutes into the video, this video is sponsored by the One Football app. As always, not as always. It's not like ETC Sports, who do always sponsor this channel, and we thank them very much for it. But particularly these transfer roundup shows are sponsored by the One Football app. Links in the description below. You can tailor it to your own specifications. On match days, it comes into its own with lineups, with injury news. And by the way, the injury news is looking a lot better for Everton and not quite so good for West Ham ahead of our game against them. As all this transfer news and these stories have both come from the One Football app. You can tailor it to your own specifications, as I say. Make it just give you the West Ham news all in one place, notification to your phone, and best of all, it's free. Click the link in the description below. One of the players to be discussed is... Okay, now I hadn't actually heard of this guy before. Okay, his name, and I'm gonna slaughter his name now, is Charles de Ketelaere. I did all right. I suppose I should go with Charles. It's Charles de Ketelaere. Okay, he actually played. He's not French, but he's from Belgium. He's from Club Bruges, and he played for Belgium. Now, apparently, Everton, Napoli, AC Milan are interested in him. He can play in a number of positions, but he looks very, very good. From what I've seen of him, yes, he played for Belgium in the semi-final? Maybe in the semi-final that they played. I think it was the semi-final that they just played in midweek. I think he came off the bench, scored a good goal. By the way, looks very, very good. Someone like this, I can imagine a director of football coming in and scouting and saying that there's. I guess he was unheard of up until the point he got into Belgium team and started scoring goals. But he's not going to be Belgium's main attacker. Clearly, he's not going to kick Romelu Lukaku out of the team. But he does look very, very good, very flexible. He looks a decent size as well. And I only say that because Moisey likes him big, really, doesn't he? Let's be perfectly honest with you. And as I've said on numerous occasions, sometimes I see a player and I think there's just no way Moyes is going to fit into Moyes' system as the centre forward. I looked at Armstrong, and I've said it for months, as you know. It's just not going to happen, as good as he might be. This is not somebody that plays in the David Moyes style. This guy, is a little bit different. So I think there's a little bit of legs in there, and legs in the story, not obviously legs in the player. Clearly the player's got legs. I think actually if we were to sign a player that didn't have any legs, then Rob Newman would be doing a terrible, terrible job. Anyway, we digress. The other guy is Copenhagen striker Jonas Wind, which I sort of like the name, and I don't like the name. I can see a lot of puerile jokes around this name if we were to sign this guy. 43 goals in 104 games. Apparently Newcastle are said to be interested. His price is around 17 million. Wind is only 22. There we go. 17 million. Okay, so let's see. Now, the other guy, whose name I've got to go back and try and pronounce again, de Ketelaere. He apparently would be available for, I like the way they say, around 24 million. If it's not around, that's quite a precise figure. If it's around 25 million, right? It's around 24.2 million pounds, roughly. I do think this is the sort of money that we can use to offset, and we can use and sort of pinch from next season's budget. And I don't think that's a bad thing to do. I don't think pinching next season's budget is a terrible thing to do, particularly bearing in mind if you're going to bring in a striker, because we know the striker. We might as well. We're going to need a striker next season anyway. It's not like we get this guy and we don't use him next season. And particularly if you're going to be young, they're going to be 22 years of age, then by all means do it. Bring them in. But because Bowen, I think, was about 20 million from Hull, I can sort of see that they're willing to do that. Don't forget we've got this lending facility, this loan facility thing, which allows us to borrow against next season's revenue. It's an overdraft, basically. We have an overdraft sat there, ready to be used. So why not use it? Why not use it? I think it might be a good idea. And I just don't think we're going to leave ourselves absolutely threadbare for what's going to be a really difficult and tricky time. And as Gio said in the last video, it gives Vlasic an opportunity between now and then, and January will be upon us before we know it. I'm telling you now, do not rule it out. You're going to walk into a shop very, very soon and you are going to hear Christmas music playing. And I'll tell you what, if Christmas music is playing in the shop, it means the January transfer window is coming very, very fast on its heels. I tell you that much. So I think Vlasic has got from now until then to try and get up to speed, get up to form, because he's going to be used. He's going to be utilised a lot. And, not only will Benrahma be away, do not rule out that it's going to take longer than normal because of the travel restrictions that there are now. And, of course, you can't even rule out that you can't be certain that Benrahma's going to return to West Ham fit. That's the other thing, which is fit already. He might need a couple of weeks of acclimatise. Might come back knackered. Might come back injured. Interesting times. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think we're comfortable and we're good this season, and we'll be okay. But there's a difference, and this is where Rob Newman comes in. This is where a striker comes in. There's a difference, a massive difference between being okay and doing well. Because I've not given up all hope of doing well. Because I think if you can get there and you get a striker and you get the squad depth, you can get to the last 16 and you get a favourable tie. You get through the last, you get that through that double header, those two legs in that last 16, and you can start to dream them.